I'm Malcolm and welcome to my shed. Now, I had a few ambitions when I was a youngster. Two of them was I wanted to own a Rover P4 like my Uncle Eric. The other one was that I wanted to be a presenter on Blue Peter, and I wanted to do all that dangerous stuff that guy John Noakes used to do. Well, sadly, that particular boat sailed a long time ago, forgive the pun. But what I did achieve was I did achieve a P4, and last year I managed to acquire a 1954 Rover 90. And she looked in relatively good condition. Unfortunately, she was very, very, very worn out. And but however, she went down to John Waring's at Clayton Le Moors, and John and Laura and Andy looked after her very well, and she came back in fantastic mechanical condition, which I'm just delighted with. At the moment, she is in the body shop having some rot cut out, which just had to be addressed because it just wasn't going to get any better. And she's getting a full respray as well. And I just thought it would be really quite rude to put these hubcaps on with these tarnished center caps back on her. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to share with you how I get from this to this, using only these bits and pieces here, which are in my shed anyway, and I'll just go through step by step the simple process of how to do that. What I'm not going to do is I'm not going to use a marl stick. I'm not going to use sort of a fine sable brush or anything like that to paint these in, because I just don't have. My hand is not that steady to be able to do that. So, so what we're going to do is we're going to mask these off, and then what we're going to do is spray them and then lacquer them. And it's quite an easy process, and we'll just go through that just now. So let's look at what we're going to need to achieve that finish. What you're going to need is, you're going to need a quite fine bladed screwdriver. And this is for removing the center cap. There are 4 prongs, I'll just show you that later, but there are 4 prongs at the back of this which you need to carefully bend into a vertical position to take that off. So you'll need one of those. A pencil. Now, again, I'll show you why you need a pencil, because what you need to do is you need to, on certain bits of detail on here, it's always best if you just take a kind of a rubbing, and it just highlights the edges, so you can cut around that. So pencil, very important. We're going to need a sharp modelling knife, and in true Blue Peter tradition, I would suggest that you get an adult to supervise you with one of these. All right. Next thing is some masking tape. You'll need that. You will need some metal polish with, I mean, you could just use an ordinary cloth, but I tend to use this terry toweling, which gets a nice finish on there. You're going to need some panel wipe. Now, this is really just a degreaser. I'm afraid the label's not very good on it, but this is just a simple proprietary degreaser. When we come to take off the initial surface of this tarnish, then we want to degrease that before we apply the paint. And what I'm using here is just a rattle can of black gloss. It's called O2 Extreme. And the other thing that you're going to need too is you're going to need a compatible lacquer, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to paint the surface of this and then go ahead and go and lacquer it and then find that there's a reaction. So, so make sure that the two are compatible. Of course, you'll need a mask, and there's many uses for that these days, as we know. You'll need that, some kitchen towel you'll need as well, just for general cleaning. You're going to need one of these, which is a drinks mug. Now, this is no ordinary drinks mug, no. This has got very special properties, and the properties of this particular mug is that it is just over 72 millimeters in diameter, and the reason why we need a drinks mug with 72 millimeters in diameter is what we're going to use it as is we're going to use it effectively as a template, so we can actually cut out the masking tape to get a perfect circle around there. And you wouldn't believe, I mean, I looked for ages for something that I could use it with, and there it was in the cupboard all the time. So around about 72.5 millimeters is good for that. And that really is about it. Oh, I nearly forgot. Again, in true Blue Peter traditional style, we're going to need the center of a toilet roll. I haven't decided what I'm going to use it for yet, but I thought I would just include it anyway, but we'll find a use for it somewhere. So that's what we're going to need. The other bit of equipment that we're going to need is we're going to need something with a wire brush on it. Now what I'm going to use is I'm going to use my grinder, which has got an 8-inch wire brush, and that really is just to cut this tarnish through. Now you could just use an ordinary drill with a brush in it, but again, get an adult to supervise you on that one, please. So here we are, let's get started on our hubcap discs. And you remember what Blue Peter used to say was, here's one I prepared earlier. Okay, so this gives us an idea of the design that was on here. Now, if you haven't already done so, I would strongly recommend that you join the Rover P4 Drivers Guild. This is the magazine that they actually put out. This comes out every 2 months. Now, I believe that I think it's about £20 a year or something like that. But what you do is you get access to this. You also get access to a cracking website. But more importantly, what you get access to is just an absolute font of knowledge from guys that actually know more about Rover P4s than probably the guys that screwed them together in the factory, because the mass knowledge of the Drivers Guild is just something else. And one of the guild members, a guy called Jason Riley, and he sent me the actual, would you believe, the original drawing of the design of this particular disc here, and I know that some members and some people that actually own P4s have their own interpretation of how they want this design. That's fine. But what I did was I was interested to know how these left the factory back in the 1950s. And it certainly would appear that there was no detail in this Viking longboat relief here, and there was no detail actually on this Rover, if you like, logo here. This was polished, and it's actually polished in a material which is noted here called gilding metal, and I haven't a clue what gilding metal is. It's certainly not brass. It might be a kind of a bronze sort of alloy or something like that. But it seems to be pretty tough stuff. And as you can see by this drawing here, I mean, there's all sorts of detail in here. The point I'm trying to make, obviously, is that you know, if I wasn't a guild member and I wasn't on the sort of the Facebook thing asking these questions, I wouldn't have got this. So it's very, very important. I mean, it doesn't really matter whether you actually own a P4 or are thinking about owning a P4 or just even interested in a P4. Join the club, because believe me, it's just amazing the knowledge that's in there. But it's interesting to note actually that there is a radius on here, and if I just put my straight edge on this, you can actually just see this radius, and this is a 20-inch spherical radius that's on here. So that's the drawing. I'll share this with anybody who wants to message me, and I can send this drawing on to them. It'll be better than this because my printer's actually giving me trouble at the moment, but this is exactly the specification of how this badge or disc left the factory. What can't speak can't lie. It's all here. But you know, you make your own interpretation of it. It doesn't really matter. So where do we begin? So let's just remove this here. So the first thing we need to do is we need to flip our hubcap over, and we need to get our screwdriver here. And as you can see that there are these 4 prongs. What we need to do is we just need to get these into a vertical position where we can just ease the badge out. And if you're very, very careful, what you can do is just prise these vertical like that, and then flip it over, and then very, very carefully just ease the badge out, or the disc out. And at the back of this disc there is a sort of a rubber gasket in here. Now I noticed on the first one that I took this off that it's actually in really good condition, and it looks as if it's been replaced at some point. So I'm just going to leave well alone here. And this is our disc, as we can see there. And so the first job now is to get this cleaned up. I'm going to go across to the wire brush, get it started up, and what we'll do is we'll just clean off all of the tarnish, and then we'll come back, give it a polish, degrease it, mask it up, and then we'll paint it and lacquer it, and that's pretty much it. The time is in the masking and also cutting out the relief, because that's quite tricky. As I found on the first one, you don't get it right first time, but we'll get cracking with that. So here is our semi-polished disc, and as you can see there, that really has come up very, very nicely, and it probably doesn't need an awful lot more now, just to clean that up. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this product here, which I use an awful lot on my classic bikes. I also used it on the Chrome on the Rover as well. And it's called Maguire's. It's a metal polish. It's quite expensive stuff, but it really is tremendous. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the hubcap as almost like a holding jig, as it were, and just to keep that in place. And I'm just going to give this a polish now, and just to get this. You don't need much of this stuff. This is the great thing about it. It's expensive, but it really is. It goes an awful long way. And what I'm going to do now is just get out a lot of the sort of the rough wire brush marks that are on there. There wasn't very many anyway. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to work at this for a few minutes, and I'll get back to you when I've done that. And there we have it. Now that really is, I'm assuming that's how it left the factory, but that really has now brought that up beautifully. So the next stage now is we'll get it masked off, and then we'll take it from there.